Hello and welcome back to a new video on my channel. In this video, I would like to introduce my new wide field astrophotography setup for this summer to you. So over the past few weeks, I built up a new astrophotography setup, and in this video, I would like to introduce this new setup to you. So I would like to introduce this setup to you, and I would like to talk about the different components I've attached to this telescope, and I would like to talk about why I have decided to go for these different components, and I would like to share a few tips with you when building your own astrophotography setup for wide field astrophotography. But first of all, I would like to mention that this video is not sponsored and I'm not being paid for it, and all products shown in this video were purchased by myself. But now I would like to start by introducing my new setup to you. First of all, it's very important to mention that I do have a bigger telescope as well. So I do have a bigger telescope with a focal length of almost 800 millimeters. But the problem is that my bigger telescope is not portable. And when there are only a few hours of total clear skies, I usually do not set up my telescope because it's simply too heavy. And therefore, the plan was to build up a new astrophotography setup. So for sure, I will still use my other telescope as well, but this is the setup I would like to use for this summer for wide field astrophotography. So as I have already mentioned, the plan was to build up a very portable astrophotography setup. So this is my new setup for wide field astrophotography. So first of all, I would like to introduce the mount to you. So the mount is a very important aspect when building up a new astrophotography setup, because when your mount is too small for your telescope, you will not achieve round stars in your image, and that is very important. So definitely make sure to buy a mount that can carry your equipment. So that's very important. In this case, I'm using an HEQ5 Pro go-to mount. So I've used this mount over the past few years for deep sky astrophotography. So I even use my bigger telescope on this mount. So this mount is definitely suitable for bigger telescopes as well. So this mount is a go-to mount, which means that I can select an object I would like to capture, and then this mount will move the telescope towards this object. And that is very helpful in deep sky astrophotography. So for sure, you can also capture those objects without a go-to mount, but it will be more difficult for you finding those objects. So especially when photographing very dark objects, it can be very helpful having a go-to mount, because then it will be easier for you to find those very dark objects in the night sky. Furthermore, when building up a setup for astrophotography, you need a telescope. Therefore, I've bought a new telescope, which is the Askar SQA55. So this is the Askar SQA55, so it's a wide field telescope. So it was quite expensive, but this telescope is definitely great for deep sky astrophotography. So as I have mentioned in the beginning of this video, the plan was to build up a wide field astrophotography setup. So it was important for me to buy a telescope with a focal length between 100 and let's say 400 millimeters of focal length. So this telescope has a focal length of 264 millimeters, which is perfect for wide field astrophotography. Furthermore, this telescope has an aperture of 55 millimeters, which results in a focal ratio of f/4.8. So in the beginning, I was not sure which telescope I should buy for astrophotography. So I was not sure about whether I should buy a lens for astrophotography or a telescope. So there are definitely lenses out there that do have a focal length between 100 and 400 millimeters. But since I plan to use this telescope for wide field astrophotography, I plan to use a full frame camera in combination with this telescope. And therefore, it was very important for me to buy a telescope that is suitable for full frame cameras. And that was not that easy, because sometimes the stars do not look that good in the edges. Therefore, it was very important for me to buy a telescope that is suitable for those full frame cameras. Then I thought about buying the Red Cat 51, but when looking at different aspects, I decided to go for the Askar SQA55. I have already captured different test images in order to check whether this telescope is suitable for full frame cameras. And these stars do look perfect in the edges, so they are very round, so this telescope is definitely suitable for full frame cameras, and that was very important for me because I plan to use this telescope for wide field astrophotography. Furthermore, in this case, you can change the aperture of this telescope. So when using this telescope for deep sky astrophotography, you can choose a focal ratio between f/4.8 all the way up to f/22. But when planning to use this telescope for astrophotography, I would recommend to use it wide open, so I would recommend to use a focal ratio of f/4.8 in order to let in as much light as possible, which is very important in deep sky astrophotography. Furthermore, when building up an astrophotography setup, you need a camera. In this case, I would like to use the Canon EOS 60A. So it's an astro-modified DSLR camera. So this is a full frame camera. So it was very important for me to use this telescope in combination with a full frame camera, because then I can capture a wider region of the night sky. So when using DSLR cameras with an APS-C sensor, you will have a crop factor of 1.6 when using Canon cameras. Furthermore, for controlling the entire deep sky astrophotography setup, I've attached the ZWO ASIAIR Pro to this telescope. So this is an astro-computer that allows me to control the entire setup. So I can control the mount, the camera, and the guiding system. So as you can see, I've attached a guiding system to this telescope as well. So as a guiding camera, I would like to use the ZWO ASI 120mm mini mono guiding cam, and the guidescope I would like to use is a 60mm guidescope. Furthermore, it's important to mention that I'm using two different power supplies for this deep sky astrophotography setup. So I would like to use one power supply for powering the mount, and I would like to use one power supply for the guiding system and for the camera and for the astro-computer. So when building up a new astrophotography setup, definitely try to use one power supply only for your mount. So this is actually the entire deep sky astrophotography setup. If you have any further questions about this setup, definitely feel free to ask me down below in the comments, and I will definitely help you. If this video was interesting and helpful to you, I would really appreciate a like and a subscription. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, clear skies, Felix.